Making the right choice or decision to buy a franchise can be a daunting challenge. It's analogous to when you're shopping for a home. We're afraid, we're anxious that we're not going to make the right choice. And that's not uncommon. By understanding and getting the answers to all of these questions, you'll be better informed to make the best educated decision in terms of which franchise is right for you. Let's dive in. Welcome back to our channel. I'm John Anderson, and our mission is to help corporate and entrepreneurial types make their transition into successful franchise ownership. What questions should you ask a franchisor before making the decision to sign the franchise agreement? Good question. Question number one is, what is their history with that particular franchise brand? How long has the senior leadership team been in place? That's one of the single most important factors, is the leadership team of that franchise brand. Those senior leaders do not have to come from the exact same industry, but what type of successful track record in terms of their history being the best indicator for their future performance. You're really investing in the quality of the talent on that senior leadership team. Another good question to ask is the financials. What is the franchise fee? What are their ongoing royalties? What is the length of their franchise agreement? You also want to know about any other fees. Typically, you're also going to need to pay into what's called an advertising fund, the national advertising and marketing budget that you're paying into for them to do macro level marketing to continue to build and boost the brand recognition across all 50 states, including your given state and your given market. In many cases, they're also going to reveal that you're going to have a technology fee involved. That technology fee typically will run about 1 to 2%. All in, you're looking at about 10 to 12% in terms of your royalties, your advertising marketing fund percentage, and your technology fees. But a very important question to ask, the financial expenses to open the business. What are the typical low to mid to high ranges that you can expect to pay to open your doors on day one? Also, you want to ask them about the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. You want to talk about the financial representations, typically in items 7 and 19. 7 is going to deal more with the expenses, and 19 is going to deal more with the revenues for their system for the previous year. Another good question to ask is, what type of training, support, and development are they going to offer? Not just you and your operations manager or supervisor that's running the day-to-day operation. What's the initial training? Is it 5 days? Is it 2 weeks? Or is your initial training going to be on Zoom or Microsoft Teams? Sometimes it's a hybrid approach between those couple of training models. You want to know, after initial training, what type of ramp up do they have planned for you? Is it the first 30 to 120 days? Most of our franchise brands that we recommend will typically have a fast ramp period, so that by the time you're done with your initial training, you already have your pipeline that you've been working on and that you've been building, so that when you come out of training, you can now hit the ground running with your spouse and or general manager and the team. Another question, however, is, can you bring your team to the training? Typically, the answer is no for the in-person initial training. But if it's on Microsoft Teams or Zoom, for example, ongoing support and training and development, can you negotiate to get your team involved in that level of training? Many will allow you to negotiate that into the franchise agreement. I highly recommend that you get your team involved in training, have them training as often as you possibly can. So what about territory? Good question. You want to make sure that you have a franchise brand that's going to give you exclusive rights to a territory. Typically, they're going to have software that's going to help design the territory, and you're going to map out your territory. You want to make sure that no one else is competing with you within that geographical boundary. Most often than not, they're going to be looking at somewhere between 2 to 300,000 population for many of the brands that we recommend. And you're going to want to look at areas with strong demographics. All of those things play a role in making sure that you have the kind of territory that gives you the potential to scale your operation. And that's the other question you want to ask at that point. How many territories can you purchase initially? And do you get a discount off of the second and the third territory in terms of the franchise fee? So for example, if the franchise fee is $49,500, they're not going to double that to $100,000 for your second territory. It's probably going to be another $10,000 to $20,000 on top of that $49,500. Let's talk about territory. How does that work when it comes to the franchise industry? Ask the question, is this territory going to be cut out exclusively for me? Am I going to have any other folks within that franchise system competing with me within my territory? They use some very sophisticated software to build a territory. They're going to want to design that territory with you on a Zoom or Microsoft Teams call. Design it together. Make sure that you're getting the very best. You also want to find out how long will you have the right to use their brand, their services, their products within that territory. Typically, you're looking at about a 10-year franchise agreement in terms of your territory rights, but make sure that you nail that down. You also want to find out about restrictions and obligations. What are your commitments that you're signing that franchise agreement for? You want to make certain that if you want to see a little flexibility in the products and services that you're offering, odds are probably 98% that they're not going to allow you to offer different products and services than what they're offering throughout their system. That would be kind of like McDonald's corporate allowing some franchisees in various cities to offer hot dogs is not on the nationwide menu. So the compliance in terms of the restrictions, obligations, you could look at that kind of as a negative or one of the weaknesses to being a franchisee. Or you can say, well, no, that's actually a strength because the entire system is going to be able to move further, faster than offering a sundry number of different products and services. Also, you want to find out, am I allowed to go down to, let's say, the local Home Depot, whatever the hardware store is, in the case of an emergency? Corporate office didn't have that particular product in inventory to ship to you. Do you have the latitude to go and buy that at your cost with whatever best price you can negotiate at your local home improvement store? Let's talk about legal. When it comes to the franchise disclosure document, typically you're going to see a lot of the legal information between items 2 to 4. Really focus on that. You're going to see whether or not you've had any bankruptcies on that senior leadership team. The company's been involved in various litigation matters in court. More often than not, a lot of litigation in the franchise industry results because some franchisees just didn't want to pay those franchise fees. That's a part of the franchise agreement. Let's talk about the process in the event that you need or want to sell your franchise. Every franchise brand that we represent, they all give you an exit clause. However, most franchisors are going to want to have first right of refusal. So if you want to sell, not a problem, but they want you to come to them first, give them the opportunity to either purchase that outright. If you're performing in that top 25%, you're rarely going to ever have a problem with your exit strategy. If you're performing at that level, you're going to be able to get premium dollar. And many franchisees have been able to do just that. Many entrepreneurial types have a strong desire to start their own business. However, they're not sure of the exact way or ways to fund their franchise or their startup. And that's why I put together this comprehensive, innovative funding strategies guide. It's going to walk you through the most popular methods available today to fund your franchise or your startup. It's going to include explanations on the SBA Express, the SBA 7A, home equity lines of credit, unsecured funding, portfolio loans, 401k rollovers, and a lot more. Download your free copy by clicking in the link in the description below. Let's talk about questions that you should ask the franchise owner or the franchisees. You're going to speak with two in the top 25%, request to speak to two in the bottom 25%, and maybe two in the middle. Important questions to ask franchise owners in that system. If you had it to do all over again, would you? Based on your business plan, did your expenses, that low to mid or high range, did you come in that range in terms of your operational expenses or expenses to open day one? Or were you higher or lower than the range in your business plan? How long have you been operating within that franchise system? What kind of support, training, and development have they offered you and your team? Of course, a big question that everyone wants to know is how much money can I make if I become a franchisee of the ABC franchise brand? Of course, the Federal Trade Commission, they really restrict us as franchise consultants or even the franchisors of making earnings claims. But you want to make sure that you ask that question to the franchise owners. What was their EBITDA or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization? They're happy to do that because they're going to pay it forward to you. But now you're going to be sharing some of your best practices back with them. And that's the beauty of the franchise industry, a very symbiotic relationship between both the franchisor and the franchisee and between franchisees. Let's talk about challenges. Ask the franchise owners that you speak with, what were some of the challenges that you anticipated in your business plan? And did you realize those challenges? And if so, how did you overcome some of those obstacles or hurdles within your market? You also want to know from them, what would you have liked to have known to ask before you actually opened your doors? We don't know what we don't know, just like that. Hey, what questions should I be asking that I don't know to ask at this point, being that I'm so new to this particular industry? Let's talk about competition and what's happening in the local market. One of the biggest strengths of being a part of the franchise system is their macro level or 10,000 foot view of the country. However, what is their market going to be like at your local level, the micro level? How well does your brand work in any city, USA? Will that brand resonate with consumers in your local market? Also, you want to know about competition. What's competition like for that brand and that business model nationwide? And then you're going to do your own local research to find out. Do Google searches, do YouTube searches, your Chamber of Commerce, talk to your local SBA, especially the SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives, and understanding of the market that the corporate folks just will never have. Another good question is, what is the typical work week for you as a franchise owner? 40 to 50 hours, or was it more like 50 to 60 hours a week to build your momentum? How long did it take you to get to break even with this business model? Did you get there in month 6 or did you get there in month 15? That's going to help you when you write your business plan to really do a nice range of low to high of what it's going to take in terms of your opening cost. You want to know from that franchise owner about their work-life balance. Many are able to work remotely or work from home. Some have a brick and mortar office. Maybe they go into the office on Monday mornings, really motivate and inspire their teams. And then they go out in the field throughout the week. And then the balance of the week, they're operating the business remotely from any internet connection, whether that's from home or the beach or up at the mountains. Most of the clients that we are working with, they're in that 50 plus age group. They don't want to have to work 80 hours a week to make it successful. Most appreciate, again, whether it's an independent business or a franchise, the first 6 to 18 months, you're going to be putting in 30 to 50 hours a week, really to build the momentum. But the analogy that I like to use for that one is a fireplace. You know how hard it is to start a fire? That was a lot of work to get the fire up and running. But once that fire is fired up in the fireplace, every 45 to 60 minutes, you take over one log and you put it on the fire. Now it continues to roar and builds that momentum. Independent business ownership, they work just like that. Let's talk about why these questions matter. If you don't have the answers that you need, how do you build the right business plan with the right marketing and advertising components with the KPIs that you need, and you need to have an in-depth knowledge of that particular industry. So many different resource tools that are out there. AI is a fantastic way. Alphabet, parent company of Google, is now giving searchers the choice between a traditional Google search versus an AI Gemini search. Put in a lot of time, effort, and energy into your business plan. It's one of the most important strategies you can participate in to improve the probability or chances of you succeeding. And that's the beauty of the franchise system. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So you're going to improve your odds or chances by going with a franchise model, but making certain that you pick the very best franchise model that gives you the best chance for success. Another reason why answers to these questions matter is because of transparency. Of course, the franchise disclosure document is going to have a lot of information about that system and about how their franchisees performed the previous year. At that leadership call, go deep. There's no question that should be off limits to make sure that you and your spouse feel confident and have the assurance that you're going to have the support, the guidance, and the direction with that particular franchise business model. Now that you know the right questions to ask, the answers that you should anticipate, let's help you find the best franchise fit for you. And that's why I've made an entire series that go much deeper into each one of these topics. So click the video on the screen now. And until next time, never forget that entrepreneurship is the only business mechanism that truly allows you to become the captain of your own ship.